The following program deals with controversial subjects. The theories, opinions, and beliefs expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Encounters, the hidden truth.
Nobody really knows why these extraterrestrials are here.
Has an attempt to contact alien intelligence led to a close encounter with a UFO?
It was stationary and it was sending out the primary colors that had just been sent out by the laser.
From Washington, our team of investigators stalked the legendary Bigfoot.
I think we scared him as much as he scared us.
Have they finally captured Sasquatch with heat-sensitive radar?
Yeah, I see him.
From Georgia, kids who claim they've had close encounters.
I looked up in the trees and there was this thing floating up there.
Do the extraterrestrials have a sinister plan?
The aliens are trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves.
From Massachusetts, during a search for a ghostly apparition, a frightening sound is captured on tape that even the experts can't explain. Is this proof of contact with the other side?
There are things beyond this. There are other dimensions.
Hello, I'm John Marshall, and welcome to Encounters, the Hidden Truth. You know, one of the most popular legends of the unexplained goes by a somewhat ridiculous nickname, Bigfoot. But behind the legend, there may lie some startling truths.
I traveled to the wilds of Washington to separate fact from conjecture, and I learned one thing. There is a good reason why this legend has endured for thousands of years. Native Americans in the Pacific Northwest called it Sasquatch. European settlers called it Bigfoot, but everyone calls it a mystery. Is it possible that the missing link between man and ape roams these dense forests? To the hundreds of eyewitnesses who have seen this huge creature, the answer is a definitive yes.
When I turned the headlights on him, I think we scared him as much as he scared us. It brought its hand up to block the light, let out a just scary scream.
We were looking at it and our brains wouldn't register what it was because we've never seen anything like this before.
When I made eye contact with it, it was not like looking at in an animal's eyes. And even though there was some distance, it was not like looking at an animal. There was intelligence there on the other side of those eyes.
Although every one of these eyewitnesses describes a different sighting, every encounter shares one thing: the enormous size of the creature.
He was about 8 feet tall. I weighed 200 pounds at that time, and he was a good 350 to 400 pounds heavier than me. His arms were as thick as my thigh.
Eyewitness testimony may hold up in court, but science demands further evidence. And the most dramatic evidence collected to date is this film clip shot near Yakima, Washington in the fall of 1967. If it's a man in an ape suit, anthropologist Grover Krantz finds the performance brilliant, if not impossible.
I went through it frame by frame, measuring everything I could on it, what the body proportions were, and I can state flatly that there is no human being alive who can fit into a costume with the dimensions that are shown there. Maybe it's a man who's got his elbows out, and that's the shoulders, but then any man of that height, the elbows are much too far apart to be measured. There's only one way you can do it. You get a 6.5 foot tall man, and go 1/3 out along his upper arm, break it, and introduce a new joint.
There is other evidence that Bigfoot exists: huge footprints, hair samples, and droppings. But we decided to look for fresh evidence and maybe a first-hand encounter. We decided to go to the area with the most recent and concentrated sightings, Grays Harbor, Washington, a scenic county at the base of the Olympic Peninsula. Thickly forested, it's a place where a large animal could hide for a long time. Undaunted, we put together a team of witnesses, technical experts, and trappers to see if we couldn't capture Bigfoot on videotape.
The rough spots, what I'd say, would be about halfway to where that clear cut is.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning, the maps are being read, the strategy is being planned. This is the last step before we head into the backcountry to look for Bigfoot. The remote backwoods area we're headed for is a place where Bigfoot was spotted just 3 months ago. Our hunt is nothing new. People have been searching hundreds of years for a creature whose heritage may trace back more than 1 million.
This is the jaw of the Gigantopithecus that was found in China. This is a large adult male, and it's only the tooth-bearing part of the jaw that we have. Trying to figure out what the rest of the skull would look like, I came up with this reconstruction for the skull. This then is roughly what I think the Gigantopithecus entire skull would look like. And I also expect that this is approximately what a Sasquatch skull would look like.
We've made it to the end of the road. From here on out, there's nothing but nature between us and our quarry. Although some people outside the Pacific Northwest might scoff at an expedition like this, around here Bigfoot is taken very seriously. So seriously that one nearby county has declared it a crime to hunt him. If you do kill a Bigfoot there, and if it turns out he's a species closely related to man, you could face murder charges and prison time. Some people believe the only way to prove Bigfoot's existence is to kill one. But on this expedition, the only shooting will be done on video. Not that we wouldn't mind finding one that died of natural causes.
We don't believe in killing one just to prove it exists, but we hope maybe someday we'll come across skeletal remains when we're out here, or one that's recently died on its own, or something.
But animals that die of natural causes aren't easy to find.
If an animal dies on its own, it has the opportunity to choose a place where it dies. And these we virtually never find. Nobody's ever found a bear that died a natural death that I've been able to locate.
After establishing camp, we set out to scout the area for signs of the creature. Bigfoot is probably the best-known animal in the world of cryptozoology, the study of animals that are suspected but unproven.
And probably the best example of a cryptozoological animal, or cryptid, as we sometimes call them, would be the African gorilla. These were considered by the European scientists to be totally mythological beasts until the first skin and skull came into a European collection in the year 1849.
Larry Lund hunted deer and elk in the woods of the Northwest for 20 years. Then he put away his guns and set out after Bigfoot.
When we follow trails, and especially along the riverbeds, we look for anything that's out of the ordinary for the normal animals of the area. We look for footprints, droppings, large disturbed areas.
Larry spent most of his time searching for tracks along a nearby creek.
Here we have it's probably a doe track. Yeah, it is a doe track. These leaves being pressed inside it. It made me curious why they were stuck down the ground, but it is just a doe track.
He found plenty of deer and elk tracks, but nothing out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, Forester Wayne Moore and former Sheriff's Deputy Fred Bradshaw led me into the high country. Later that afternoon, we found something unusual.
You see something?
This is an impression right here. Yeah. That's a good possible right here. You got the toes, the cut edges along here for the heel. And that'd be at least a good 14-inch track.
And given what we see here, I mean, what does it tell us about the stride? In terms of the height, the bigness of the animal?
Well, if you allow that is a track, then you've got a 6-foot stride. And a 6-foot stride would be extraordinary.
Would it help to make a cast of this?
Yes, it would show with when you pour a casting of it, it'll pick up more of the foot impression if it is anything at all.
We use a plaster that is easy to mix and quick to harden. The entire process took about 20 minutes.
This one's not probably one of the best ones that they've ever had, but it appears that it does have toes in it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it appears to be a large one over on this side.
Maybe, but the tracks led nowhere, and a few footprints made in mossy ground were not the definitive proof we were looking for. Stalking Bigfoot is no easy game. He's proven himself to be an extremely elusive quarry. To catch him on tape, we've devised a trap that includes everything from tripwires and motion detectors to floodlights and video cameras. Now, everything is set to work automatically, but we'll also rig an alarm that will alert us to Bigfoot's presence. Sasquatch researcher Todd Nice staked out a rock quarry near our base camp.
Bigfoot purportedly has been seen digging up rodents on a couple of occasions.
First, he laid bait.
If we had it in one piece, it'd probably be gone in 2 seconds, but if we break it up, it gives them a reason to hang around a little bit.
The strategy here is to lure the creature within range of our infrared sensors and floodlights.
It's my hope that the shock of the lights may give us an extra 10-15 second filming time.
He also set traps in the forest nearby.
Immediately around my bivouac site, I will have some trip wires, which will also set off a high-pitched beep should we get anything right in the campsite itself.
Yet another kind of trap would illuminate any large animal entering the area. The Native Americans who lived in these forests were very familiar with the creature. Physical anthropologists studied the stone carvings they left behind.
It's not any of the animals that's normally encountered in the area because the Indians carved representations of all the animals that we know. This one appears to be ape-like. The only explanation that anyone's been able to come up with is whoever carved this was familiar with the face of something like a Sasquatch.
When an alarm sounded later that evening, Todd was there within seconds.
Something definitely hit it, because when I found it, it was pulled up here. Something had to have struck this trip line pretty good. Pretty elusive, whatever it was.
The rest of the night was a waiting game. Ultimately, it became clear that no one was taking our bait. But the hunt wasn't over yet.
It's now 5:30 in the morning and we're about to catch up with the linchpin of our operation. It's a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter specially equipped with infrared heat-seeking instruments. If Bigfoot is anywhere near here, the chopper will detect his body heat. The crew will then radio us of his position and continue to track him from the air until we can catch up with him.
Are the ground conditions cool enough for you down here? Are there any problems with that?
Yeah, this is optimum conditions for infrared.
Yeah, optimum.
Coordinating their movements with the team on the ground, the helicopter crew covers a 25-square-mile grid. Any warm-blooded animal in the area should register on the cockpit monitor.
Looks pretty sterile right now. Okay, we'll check down the drainage.
At first, the woods look empty, but a few minutes out, we see a warm area in the brush where a large creature seems to have been bedded down for the night. It can't be far away. And then we spot something alive in the underbrush. It looks tall, and it's huge.
Right 60 degrees. Right 60 degrees. Okay, I'm going to swing around to the right, and maybe we can identify them. They're directly below us on the right side. There's two of them standing together, barely moving.
The remainder of our aerial search uncovers plenty of elk, but no evidence of Bigfoot. But that doesn't necessarily mean he isn't out here.
Obviously, if the animal is well hidden, the infrared can't pick them up in a cave or under a very dense tree cover.
If Bigfoot does live in the thousands of square miles of forest that make up the Pacific Northwest, we'll need more resources to spot him. But our trip wasn't for nothing.
When you're dealing with this type of phenomenon, you're not seeking final answers. You're seeking increments in the puzzle, small pieces, small bits. And consequently, anything that you develop is more than you had before.
Now, Russell, I can well understand how a live Bigfoot would elude trackers, but all creatures have to die sometime, so where are the bones?
Well, John, you'd really have to travel these woods to appreciate just how immense they are. If we assume that Bigfoot is the ultimate endangered species, there may be only a handful left alive. The odds of finding bones are stacked against us.
The proverbial needle in a haystack. We'll be right back.
When we return, children who claim they've seen UFOs.
I looked up in the trees and there was this thing floating up there.
Are they also the victims of sinister alien abduction?
It's like if some man could come in your house and take your child.
An ideal UFO witness would have good eyesight, no financial agenda for making a story up, and no preconceptions. For these reasons, reliable UFO witnesses are not always easy to find.
You know, John, that's true, but maybe people have been looking in the wrong places. Recently, as part of our ongoing investigation, Encounters went looking in the right place and spoke with children who are convinced they saw a UFO. Here's our story.
For more than 4 decades, children have been reporting UFO sightings.
These wide-eyed observers offer a unique perspective on this unusual phenomenon.
And it came this way. And then, first it was going real slow, and then it just took off. Boom!
There's two of them up there. Hold on. Look at them, flashing. They're flashing.
Hampton, Georgia is a small town near Atlanta.
Hello.
It was in this well-kept trailer park that a group of ordinary school children encountered a UFO. What'd you say?
I looked up at the trees and there was this thing floating up there.
I saw something up there and I didn't quite know what it was, and I asked Shannon, I said, what is that? And she said she don't know. And I hollered at Chris.
She jumped up and said UFO, so I jumped up and I looked and I saw something black. It was hovering right over the building, but it was real high in the sky. So it hovered right across the over in the sky and over to the radio tower.
You're screaming.
You were screaming?
Yeah.
I just sort of, I screamed a little bit, but I just sort of was in shock when I never seen anything like it.
This incident was investigated by Michael Norris, an Air Force veteran and chief editor of UFO Encounters. Now, this craft that they described, is this a craft that you've had reportings of before in this area?
What's interesting is when we started to report about this particular sighting, and we actually published some of the pictures and drawings that the children had made, I got some calls from people from other parts of the country saying, you know, we've seen this come up before. We have people who say they've also described this same shape, size, with the lights, but yet when you go to officials, whether the FAA or your military bases or the airports, that there is nothing in conventional aircraft that we know of that could explain what it is they saw.
The UFO vanished within seconds, but these children will feel the effects of this encounter for a very long time, and more than one will bear the scars of public ridicule. So when you walked into the school and you saw the principal and the teachers laughing at the children's experience, how did you feel?
Made me mad. Made me very mad. I saw that principal laughing at those kids and joking around, and I asked him, I said, look at these kids. Can't you tell by looking at them there's something wrong?
Sighting a UFO and being ridiculed for reporting it is upsetting enough for a child. What's far worse is a close encounter of a different kind, alien abduction. Justin, a 10-year-old living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, describes his first alien encounter.
I fell asleep, and then I woke up a little bit later early in the morning, and I saw these gray beings. And I was just laying there. Then I felt like a device, something around my wrists, my neck, and my ankle.
For children who've always relied on adults to protect them, these encounters can be traumatic, but kids aren't the only ones affected. Their parents suffer just as much from feelings of helplessness and fear. Having your child abducted is terrifying no matter who or what is doing it.
It's like any other abduction, If some man or some guy with a ski mask would come in your house and take your child, the only difference between your child and mine is mine comes back.
When we come back, the terrifying stories of children who are convinced they have been abducted by aliens. Stay with us.
When we return, what sinister plan do the extraterrestrials have for our children?
The aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves.
Our startling investigation continues next.
Many children are convinced they have seen UFOs, and a few of these witnesses also believe they have been abducted by aliens.
Author Bud Hopkins was one of the first researchers to investigate the abduction phenomenon, and he believes these children are among the most credible witnesses he has ever interviewed. From the Midwest to New York, these stories of alien visitations are strikingly similar. Manhattan-based writer Bud Hopkins has researched thousands of alleged alien abductions.
What has emerged through many, many cases is the idea that the aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves. They're interested in our DNA, our genetic makeup, and beyond that, they're interested in our personalities our affection for our children, our love for one another, a whole kind of range of what we think of almost the most human characteristics we have emotionally.
One of his most remarkable cases is that of John Cortelia, an 11-year-old boy from New York's Lower East Side.
When it happened, I had woke up from my sleep, and I had the sudden urge to look out the window in my living room. So I got out of my bed, and I just, went into my living room. I looked out the window, and I saw something emerging from the water. So I didn't know what it was. I just watched it as it came toward my window. And as my mother passed me, I was screaming, and she didn't even hear me. So this thing just pulled me through the window.
John claims that these aliens took him aboard a UFO.
They just took me into the door, and I was just laid down onto my stomach looking out these windows. I do remember some sort of a scraping with a sort of long rounded object, sort of like a knife, scraping me or scratching me with it, trying to hurt me or something. I woke up the next morning like it was a dream, only though I knew it wasn't a dream.
Skeptics claim that abduction stories are the product of a child's active imagination, but Bud Hopkins has developed an elaborate system of tests to prove these skeptics wrong.
I developed the Hopkins image recognition test a number of years ago because I felt that a projective test based on simple images and checking the child's response would be a very viable way of looking into their experiences. So I show these children first Santa Claus, and we go through Batman and clowns and police and so on. When we come to the alien out of 10 pictures, which is very neutral, we just listen to what the child says, how the child responds. I have seen a child absolutely fold up in tears, hide herself in her father's lap crying, "I don't want that man in my dreams. That's the man who takes me away."
Fortunately, these traumatized and bewildered families have the support of concerned experts. Newport Beach, California is the home of Dr. Deborah Trincala. She specializes in the counseling of alien abductees.
I think it's very important that we look at children who've had anomalous experiences in the following way. We need to listen to them. We need to understand that from their world, they don't have a handle on what's happened. They need to have a sense of control over their lives to the degree that they can handle that. That's part of their development. And so we have to be attentive to that need.
If these encounters are the results of some bizarre alien experiment, why are our children being targeted? And when these children grow up, how will the experiment be concluded? All we and they can do is wait.
Now, Sandra, you'll have to admit that most children have pretty active imaginations, and you put that together with all the TV they watch.
John, that may be true to some degree, but it's wrong to assume that children would go out of their way to make these kinds of stories up. In fact, joining us tonight are 3 cases in point. They are members of the UFO Investigators and Other Strange Phenomenon Club, all the way from Virginia. They are Wesley Frank, Jonathan Pine, and Kevin Trobaugh. Welcome. Now, you just saw a story. Those children sighted a UFO, told their friends at school, and were ridiculed. They were laughed at. Do you guys believe in UFOs?
Oh, yeah.
If you do see a UFO, what do you do as investigators?
We ask people of that area where we saw it if they saw the same thing.
What do you say to kids who say, "Oh, you're making it all up"? Kevin?
Well, maybe they don't believe in UFOs, but we do, and we think we saw one. So, we tell them, and if they don't believe us, they don't believe us.
Right. What about you, Wesley?
If I believe there's, UFOs and stuff, then that's all that matters to me.
Well, keep looking at the skies. We're glad that you care, and good luck with your investigations. We'll be right back.
Coming up next,
nobody really knows why these extraterrestrials are here.
Has an attempt to contact alien intelligence led to a close encounter with a UFO?
It was stationary, and it was sending out the primary colors that had just been sent out by the laser.
Have you ever wondered what you would do if you saw a UFO? Would you have the presence of mind to observe closely, or would you take off in the opposite direction?
Well, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence knows what they would do. Their motto could be taken from the Boy Scouts: be prepared.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world is under attack.
In the 1950s, visitors from outer space had a straightforward agenda: mass destruction, planetary enslavement, and the equal opportunity employment of nasty death rays. But yesterday's bug-eyed monsters are today's extraterrestrials, and eyewitnesses believe that the day of alien contact is drawing near, if it already hasn't occurred.
I'm convinced that there is a small faction within our government that has been grappling for nearly 50 years with the problem of eventual disclosures of alien contact on this planet. I think they've been in possession of information that has convinced them that aliens or non-human intelligence has reached this planet quite some time ago.
Dr. Stephen Greer isn't waiting for the government to issue him an extraterrestrial passport. He is the head of the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or CSETI. This organization is getting ready for an event they feel is inevitable: the day we first make contact.
Preparing people for this kind of contact, the human dimension is the most difficult one. We were in England in 1992, and we were able to vector one of these objects. It was a large 150-foot diameter disc with a dome or cupola on top. You know, God is my witness, this was an extraordinary event. But when you've locked on, you have signaled to it, it has signaled back, it's changed course, and it's coming in towards you. This is when you realize that, my God, they see us and they're coming.
Dr. Greer founded CSETI in 1990. Over the years, they have refined their stated mission.
Trying to establish contact with the life forms on board these objects. And this is very important. CSETI really isn't interested in the UFOs. We're interested in the occupants or the intelligence or the beings behind the UFOs.
All of CSETI's efforts have one ultimate intention:
We try to get one to land and eventually, if possible, to get a boarding party on board one of these objects.
Encounters asked CSETI if they would take us on one of their UFO expeditions, and they agreed. Before we left, we met with their team of human ambassadors.
I'm real excited about it. Just be careful, you know.
Caroline O'Patry is excited. She believes there is a chance she will make direct contact with extraterrestrials, but she plans on taking things one step at a time.
The game plan is, should there be a sighting and should we be locked on in such a way that the ETI would choose to land and make contact with us, we would be ready to do so.
I guess I should take my own flashlight just in case. And I don't know what the weather's going to be like. It's so hot now, but I probably better take my heavy coat.
She has learned to put her fears aside and approach contact with an open mind.
Whatever you fear or revere, you draw to you. So I don't want to come from fear. Come, be peaceful. You will attract peaceful entities. And what's exciting about CSETI to me is this repeated philosophy of non-hostility, of being diplomats for peace, of being a liaison with humankind and extraterrestrial intelligence.
Come on, you guys, we gotta hurry.
Okay,
yeah,
be
it's better to be there.
Going to San Fernando Valley, is that where it is?
No, Topanga Canyon.
Am I emotionally prepared to go on board a UFO? I don't know. I like to think that I am. But then again, I know, because of the people I've talked to, that seeing a UFO is not always fun. It's scary. For so long, I had thought that UFOs weren't real. I thought they were figments of people's imaginations. That for me to suddenly reverse my opinions caused literally a breakdown in my whole system of beliefs. And it wasn't fun. I eventually had to face the fact that UFOs were here.
Nobody really knows why these extraterrestrials are here. However, there's not a scintilla of evidence that their net motives for being here are hostile or oriented towards harming life on this planet.
We are now, I think, in the process of looking at the world differently. We're beginning to see everything interconnected. And that's not just on this earth, it's the whole universe.
C said he wants the government to release all information about alien encounters.
The idea behind Project Starlight is to brief leaders in society and to encourage them to try to bring out the definitive evidence which we believe exists and to finally confirm the fact that we have detected extraterrestrial life forms.
Why would the government cover up alien contact? I think they're coming from a mentality that arose in the mid-40s when we actually believed we were being invaded from space. We couldn't handle the technology we were seeing, that the government would try to keep this secret until they could understand the nature of their challenge. And today, we have 50 years of momentum that's very hard to break.
What we do not have is anyone in an important position in government saying the U.S. government has this knowledge and we're officially declaring an interest in this and want to share this with the public. Several of us are urging the Clinton administration to review that policy.
Meanwhile, emotions were high as we reached our contact site.
God, this is a great location. How did you happen to choose it?
It's an open area, meaning that you have good visibility of the sky, and in addition to that, we've got some good areas where we can land out, put out landing beacons.
What about this side right here? Back a little bit.
Closest we can get to a circle and kind of do a briefing here. I'm just going to enter an entry log on this. This is dictation at Topanga State Park in Los Angeles County. We want to also put all of our names and contact numbers for who you can have contacted in the microcassette recorder for the documentation person.
Preston Dennett, contact Christine Dennett.
Dr. Joe Burks, contact Yael Burks.
Dixie Sullivan, contact my office.
We want to establish the various positions. We want to number off so that in the event that there is a landing, we know in what order we'll approach the craft. So I'll be boarding party member number 1. Joe, you want to be number 2? Dixie?
3.
The last thing we want to do at this point is to determine where the landing site should be in the event that we're able to vector a craft in at close range.
Everyone has arrived here at Topanga Canyon, and there's a real sense of excitement in the air. The CSETI members are preparing their laser lights, audio equipment, telescopes, and binoculars, and in a few minutes, we'll start signaling. If we're lucky, something out there just may answer our call.
So what we're going to do is project these tones with a radio transceiver. Please put out the landing strobes.
We waited for hours, sending out tones and laser light beacons into the darkness. Then suddenly, someone spotted a strange light. But before we could turn on our camera, it disappeared. But moments later, it reappeared on the horizon.
Oh, there it is again.
It's back again.
There it is again.
Very bright colors, the same one, they're the same red and green the laser was putting out. Oh my. This is no airplane. At 9:45, we have an object about 5 degrees above the ridge in the west that was probably out over the Pacific Ocean. It was stationary and it was sending out the primary colors that had just been sent out by the laser. And we've got a commercial jet pilot with us, and this is very unusual.
So did we or did we not see something?
Yeah, that was.
And how rare is that?
It happens virtually every time we go out if we're doing the right stuff.
Preston, did we have a close encounter tonight?
I think we may have. Now, this sort of thing has happened before. And of course, we prefer to call them unknowns, unless if we're up close in a metallic ship. That would be a different story. But nevertheless, it's exciting, and I'm pleased.
This is your first time? What was it like?
This is my first time with this. Oh, it's excellent. I want to stay here all night. I don't want to leave. I want to see what that was over there.
We saw something tonight. We don't know what it was, but as long as human beings claim to be meeting extraterrestrials, CSETI will be trying to make contact.
Most of us already know that we're not alone in the universe. This is simply a step further where we're saying, not only are we not alone, but those life forms that may be out there, a few of them have made their way into our corner of the universe.
Sandra, I am very curious. Do you really think you saw a UFO?
Well, John, I saw something flying and nobody can identify it, so I guess you'd have to say I did see a UFO. Unfortunately, the videotape really didn't do our encounter justice.
Our analysis of this intriguing footage will continue, and Encounters will be back in a moment.
Coming up, during a search for a ghostly apparition, a frightening sound is captured on tape that even the experts can't explain. Is this proof of contact with the other side?
There are things beyond this. There are other dimensions.
An important part of the American dream is that day when you move into your new house. But to Jim Barisiak, that dream swiftly turned into a nightmare. According to Jim, a Ouija board gave him a frightening message. His new home was inhabited by ghosts who wanted the house for themselves. Now, Jim didn't need a game board to tell him that he needed help. Encounters was there when that help arrived. Gardner, Massachusetts. Outwardly an unlikely place to investigate an active haunting. But Andrew Nichols has learned that the supernatural is where you find it. Nichols is a skeptical scientist and a trusting parapsychologist. To him, a haunted house is a laboratory.
I believe that haunting phenomena can be measured using electromagnetic detection devices under certain circumstances, but whether or not it actually represents surviving soul after death, I don't know.
Andrew's reputation is at stake with every investigation. To screen out unreliable witnesses, he first administers psychological exams in order to determine their reliability.
The second questionnaire we have is an inventory of childhood imaginings, which basically is to determine how fantasy prone you are. Because
Andrew's test showed that Jim was firmly grounded in reality.
I'd like you to show me some of the areas where you've experienced the phenomenon in the house.
After Andrew took initial measurements on his own, homeowner Jim Barisiak, who had purchased the house 8 months earlier, gave him a tour.
You can see right now.
It all began shortly after Jim moved into this huge Tudor house. Built in 1893, it stood next to a previously well-traveled frontier trail.
When we first moved in, things happened very quickly. And I think they were just signs showing us that they were here. You would hear what sounded like crystal hitting the floor, the hardwood floor, and just shattering all over. Yet when you turned around, there was nothing.
After midnight, Jim would hear other inexplicable sounds echoing through the house.
Usually around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you will hear someone walking up and down the main stairway. We have heard a baby crying. I've heard a woman laughing, a dog, which is odd considering I have 2 cats. The strange things that have happened in this room mainly took place last weekend. I was away on a trip, and when I came back and came into the bedroom, I noticed that the statues, which had belonged to my mother, were all face down on the floor. None of them were chipped, none were broken. They were just placed face down on the floor.
Jim told Andy that months earlier, he decided to try to directly communicate with the apparent ghostly occupants of his home. He decided to use a Ouija board.
It works by subliminal motions of the muscle system and involuntary motion. So the person themselves are actually moving the planchette or the pointer across the board. But it still is an interesting psychic tool because our subconscious or unconscious minds are more closely tuned to psychic phenomena.
Right from the beginning, we never had any problem with communicating. It was a very strong force. It gave us specifics.
The letters and numbers on the board told Jim an ancient story of treachery and murder.
It took place in 1720. They were traveling from Quebec City to Boston on what was at one time an Indian trail, and they had stopped on the property overnight to rest. They built a campfire and were around the campfire when they were robbed and eventually murdered.
Channeled through the Ouija board, the spirits told Jim that they had been buried in front of the house.
They wished to be taken back to Quebec City, where they could rest in peace. I want to help them. And I think in helping them, I'll help myself. Because then the house will be mine.
Praying that he could find their remains, Jim and a couple of friends searched for the bones. But they found nothing. Desperate, Jim went looking for outside help. That help arrived with Andrew Nichols. Andrew continued his electromagnetic search for some hard facts, and his meters uncovered the kinds of phenomena often associated with hauntings.
I think some of the fields that we've discovered in this house are extremely significant, particularly the one at the base of the stairs, which was a mobile field. It actually was a moving electromagnetic field, and that cannot be explained by any normal environmental cause that I'm aware of.
At this point in the story, Encounters became directly involved in this electronic gathering of evidence. During a routine screening of the tapes containing Andrew's interview, we noticed something that had gone unnoticed by the 5 people who were present at the time. A strange growl that appeared between interview questions. We couldn't explain how it got there, so we sent the tape out for analysis. Encounters asked audio specialist Tom Borton to use computers and waveform monitors to compare the growl to a variety of samples. First, he ruled out the possibility that it was human. Next, he eliminated any known animal as the source. That narrowed down the possible explanation to something with no explanation.
There's no way of being able to make an exact analysis and say, yes, this is, definitely a spirit, but not being human, not being animal, not being machine, not looking like any of those. It's odd, very peculiar.
What was this mysterious growl? Did we accidentally capture a ghost on audio tape? Our tests will continue. Meanwhile, thanks to Jim Beresiak, Andrew Nichols is one step closer to uncovering the truth about the supernatural.
In my opinion, based on the limited amount of time I've had, I do think that this would qualify as being a genuine haunting. I think that all this is not something that's supernatural. It's an aspect of nature that we just don't understand yet. And that eventually, through parapsychology, these phenomena will be brought within the realm of mainstream science, and we will understand it.
The lesson that I'm learning here is that this isn't all of it. This isn't our total reason for being. This isn't our total existence. There are things beyond this. There are other dimensions. There are other times. And we shouldn't fear death.
Other than that strange growl, there's really little hard evidence that ghosts haunt Jim Beresiak's house. But whether or not we believe the Ouija board story, Jim Beresiak hopes that his ghostly tenants have at last found peace. Encounters will be right back.
If you would like to contact us here at Encounters, write to Encounters, P.O. Box 36B47, Los Angeles, California, 90036. To contact us by phone, call 213-525-1UFO. That's 213-525-1836. Or to contact us online, visit the Encounters forum on CompuServe by typing Go Encounters or the following number. And thank you for your interest in Encounters.
It's been said that the finite mind cannot hope to understand the infinite. The stories we've seen this evening illustrate the truth in that saying. And we hope that we've given you something to think about and helped you come closer to unraveling the hidden truth. I'm John Marshall. Good night.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, October 25th, the Alien Nation saga continues as an all-new world premiere motion picture. 5 years ago, they came to live among us. Now,
Coming to enslave us again.
their enemies are determined
I've been sent to facilitate the recovery of our slaves.
to bring them back.
I also plan to take the humans.
Prepare yourself for Alien Nation Dark Horizon. Coming Tuesday, October 25th to Fox. Parental discretion advised.
Now, stay tuned for The Simpsons next.